What up, everybody? Hoya Rock from Smoke AD. You're listening to Aftershocks TV, baby.
All right, thanks for everyone for tuning in again this week for another episode here of Aftershocks TV. I hope everyone's having a great start to the new year, and I'm glad to have my film partner with me today and MADROST frontman and guitarist himself, Mr. Tanner Poppitt. What's going on, Tanner? How are you, man?
How you doing, man? Thanks again for having me. It's good to see you. It's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a while since we did one of these. I know. I think the last time we did one of these, we talked some New York hardcore leeway. It was when God, I guess it was about a year ago. I can't believe it's been that long ago. You know, Mike. We did the tribute to Mike Gibbons when he passed. I believe it was last year. It might have been the last time we did this. I think. Yeah,
And
because
Eddie.
yeah.
Yeah, and then when Eddie died or whatever, so
Yeah. That's right. That's what it was when Eddie passed, not Mike. That's right, because Eddie passed a little after Mike. That's right. So yeah. So good to see you again. Well, speaking of New York hardcore, you know, this we're going to be talking about that today, but unfortunately, this is probably going to be one of the most unpleasant discussions, you know, that we've ever done here on Aftershocks, if not the most unpleasant. This is not a fun thing to talk about, but it is news and something we have to bring up. Because it is getting a little, things are kind of picking up on the story as we go here. And yeah, we wouldn't be doing our due diligence here, obviously, if we didn't do this. So just now I'm going to just, talk a little bit here just to set all this up before we kind of get into our commentary. You know, just a few days ago, maybe about, I think it was last Thursday of last week. Today is January 27th. So I think around January 23rd or so, 24th, ex-Cro-Mag vocalist John Joseph, he posted to his Instagram page, and I'm going to bring it up here. I won't read it word for word, but I'll kind of go through, obviously, the gist of what this is all about here. We'll just share this with everyone right here. So John took to his Instagram page, social media page, okay? And of course, John, as we all know, like you said, he was ex vocalist for original, he was on Age of Quarrel, the first, big album first album ever by the Cro-Mags, obviously the biggest album that they're known for, and one of the, as many consider the all-time, classic New York hardcore record. He came out in his post, as you see here, and he asserted that the late Ray Barbieri, better known as Raybeez, who was the frontman for the legendary New York hardcore band Warzone, and of course Ray had passed back in '97, so we're talking about it was 30 years ago when he died of AIDS back in '97. John basically is saying he's not the person that everyone thought he was, and that his legendary iconic status is known for. I mean, he's known as the good guy, one of the best, the best guys ever in the genre in terms of just his character and what he did for kids and for the scene and so forth. He's saying that he was indeed a child predator who would pry troubled teens within the New York hardcore scene with alcohol and drugs and would take advantage of them sexually. Obviously, that's a very, we're talking about a very heavy accusation here. And he stated that another late great individual from the scene, Todd Youth, which, like I said, I'm a huge fan of Todd Youth. You can take a look at his history. He not only in New York hardcore did he have a great career, but outside of it as well, played with Danzig, Cheap Trick, Ace Frehley, so forth. You can go into his career a bit if you want to check into him, but he said that Todd, who played with John and Todd were in a band, and his band Bloodclot. They played on the album together, Up in Arms, that came out in 2017. He said that basically Todd confessed to him, or told him that Ray preyed on him as well when he was a troubled teen back in the 80s. Now, the interesting thing of this is, and you see them right there, so you see this picture up here that we have up there. That was an appearance that the two of them did on the Regis and Kathy Lee Gifford show, back in the 80s. As you see, there's Raybeez there, and to the right, he's on the left, and Todd is all the way to the right there. So he was tied with, him and Ray were in Warzone, basically their heyday. Most of their really classic music those two did together, what people know them for. So John says that Todd told him when they were recording the album and so forth that, Ray took advantage of him as well and got him high back when he was a troubled teen and a runaway himself back in the 80s there in New York. So, and as we said here, so Ray was really just an iconic figure in the scene. And this is obviously a huge accusation here, right? But he said Todd told him this, and he said since then a lot of other people have come out to him and told him this as well. He's claimed that this was something that people in the scene, around the scene, we're talking about old heads in some of those classic New York hardcore bands, that they were aware of this. He said this was not anything that was really kind of a secret. There's a lot of whispers, a lot of rumors about this. Now, of course, obviously Ray's got this real great reputation. I mean, they did, they've done tributes, they've done benefits, all that stuff when he was sick back in the day. So now before we get, so this is the story. Okay. This is what John now has come out and said of Ray. Now, before we get into the discussion, we need to, like I said, set the stage here, because it is really sensitive, obviously. So I just want to let everyone know out there, we're not taking a side. We're not saying whether what John's saying is right. We're not saying whether it's wrong that Raybeez did or didn't do it. Obviously, we have no fucking clue, firsthand knowledge ourselves here. So we're just taking this from a real objective point of view based on quotes, information, just doing an objective journalistic, the way really journalism should be, view of this. We're just kind of disseminating all the information that's out there in the media and online and the press and so forth. But like I said, we're not taking a side or saying whether it's true or not. All right, we're just going to analyze what's out there. We're going to do some actual real journalism with as much, integrity and objectivity as possible. So now, initially, when it comes to the story, obviously, the first thing that comes to mind, right, what people are, talking about is like, all right, well, these guys have been, I mean, they're not here, so they're not here to defend themselves, right? Todd's been gone for about 6 years, and Ray's been gone for almost 30. So this is a big thing here. Now, like I said, this is something that's really sensitive to talk about, man. I mean, here it is. I mean, think about it. Outside of killing somebody, right? Of committing murder or just really, obviously just killing someone. This is probably right up there with the worst crimes that you could do, because you might not be killing someone, but essentially you are ruining their lives when you do something like that. Okay. So this is super heavy, man. Now, of course, I mean, that's the thing. Now you've got everybody, online giving their opinions and what they think or what, obviously, like I said, I just want to shoot it over to you because I wanted to set this up a little bit, but I wanted to, just set up a little bit here, and I'm going to obviously talk more into it. We're going to go through everything in detail, but I wanted to give you a minute to talk here, Tanner. I mean, when something like this story comes and you hear this, I mean, obviously, it's just a tragic story if it's true. Obviously, you're talking about the probably good guy of all time in this New York hardcore scene, a guy who people looked up to, a guy who a lot of people have come out and said that they helped them through the hardest times of their lives. So, but now you've got this supposedly other thing now that supposedly maybe he had been doing. We don't know. Obviously, this is coming from John. There have been, we'll get more to the story, but I want to let you talk here. I mean, what's the first thing that comes to your mind, or when you hear or see something like this? I mean, just as a music fan, as someone who's obviously has a conscience, and when accusations like this come up, these are serious things. I mean, what goes through your mind, man? You talk to me a little bit here.
Well, there's a lot to unpack here, right? With this whole thing. I mean, especially if you're into a specific genre of music, because this is this is not like, we're not talking about a big star, just in terms of like everybody knows who they are, right? We're talking about like a big fish in like a small pond.
Sure.
So it's, for one, obviously it's heartbreaking because, Warzone is one of the, in my opinion, I mean, it's one of my favorites in the hardcore genre. Like I really love that band. And obviously the Cro-Mags as well. So what typically goes through my mind when I'm hearing this kind of for the first time is I don't really want to believe it. And I'm not saying it happened or it didn't, because I have no idea, right? I'm only speculating. My whole thing is, what is the responsibility of the person coming out with these accusations? Like, what do they have to gain by speaking these allegations? So I'm always fascinated by that whole aspect, just in terms of why now, why these, why come out now as opposed to back then. And so, you know, if you're asking me, does it affect me listening to their music? It could, because in my opinion, this is like the worst thing you could do to somebody. That's just my opinion. I would think this is even worse than, say, I guess murdering somebody. Obviously, it's
I mean, this is heavy.
This
is
is
a heavy shit, man. I mean, it's
this
as
is
heavy
like,
as it gets.
right. This is like very sensitive. But I'm also curious too, and hopefully we'll get into it as just in terms of the responsibility of how the media portrays this, or if they even talk about this. So there's a lot of stuff to unpack here.
There is.
It'd be heartbreaking if this was true.
Yes.
I don't know it, but I'm only saying just in terms of like being a fan, and thank God none of this has ever happened to me. I couldn't even imagine going through something like that. So for me, it's heartbreaking if this is true.
Yeah. So let's get, like I said, and that's the thing, right? It's one, you know, person who said a person who's no longer with us told them this about someone who hasn't been here in 30 years. Now, like I said, so let's disseminate what we do, you know here. So he makes this post. Now I'm going to bring up some things in a little bit, because there are some people, some prominent people in the hardcore scene who have chimed in a little bit on this. Okay. And I also reached out, you know, we reached out here on Aftershocks to John to see if he wanted to come on and talk to us about it. And he respectfully declined. Now, full disclosure too, before we go into this, you know, none of us, both of us here, because, you know, obviously we're going to go back and forth here. None of us have a personal relationship with John Joseph. Okay. I did interview him a couple years ago for when the last Bloodclot record came out. Okay. I did meet him some years ago when I worked at Rona Records as an intern. His band Both Worlds was on there. He was in the office a lot. He was doing interviews and doing all the press and stuff. And, you know, listen, you know, he's a nice guy to me. Always said hi, you know. I got no problem, but we have no personal relationship at all. So we have no skin in this game. That's I think I wanted to get out there. This is all objective. We got no skin in the game. Okay. We're just going based off information that's out there that we know and so forth. Okay. So if it sounds like we're you know, sticking up for John, no, we're trying to really be objective from both sides here, because this is such a unique situation that I don't know if this ever even happened before, something like this in music. You know what I mean? I not in the hardcore scene for sure, but really within rock and metal, we see things, but this is, I don't know if we've ever seen anything like this. So now, as I was saying, the biggest complaint really has just been like, well, how can you speak, you know, bad about the dead? When you have no concrete proof. All right. So that's, and listen, that we can totally see that. That's a valid, you know, argument there, right? How come this wasn't mentioned? You know, the other thing too is why, if you knew stuff like this, why not say it earlier? And also, you know, if Todd wanted this to come out, like John said he did, why didn't he say it then? You know, and there's another, like I said, there's a whole bunch of like back and forth that we can go for. But so it's, you know, it stems really from, I guess that's the morality issue that people are saying, right? So you can understand the backlash in certain way, because this is someone, like I said, who's with Raybeez, who's fostered quite the positive reputation in the hardcore scene for decades as a great guy, a guy who did all these good deeds for good, you know, for these people. And he's being accused of something, like we said, that's, you know, absolutely horrendous. So on the flip side now you're coming from John Joseph's perspective. Okay. He's someone now who's been very vocal about being molested as a kid himself. And not only himself, he's known a lot of people. His brother, you know, recently, within, I think, the last couple of years, passed away from drug and alcohol abuse. Same thing, because he was also abused as well. The both of them were in foster homes. You know, he had a really tough childhood, you know, John, and you can go ahead and look that up, all that stuff you want. So here's a guy now coming and relating from what supposedly Todd told him. And he's hearing people in the scene now going back decades. He said it's been eating at him for years. Now, so you could see this is something that's eating him up for decades. He said he decided to kind of do it. And you can read his Instagram posts. He's got posts, on there that he's talked to people about. And he sent us a message, and I'll go, email when I reached out to him, and we'll go through a little bit of it while we're here. But so here's a guy who this act that he's accusing Raybeez of doing to a lot of people, and that he did to Todd. That's happened to him, not through Raybeez, but from someone himself. His brother happened to, who's dead, and he said he really, the reason why he came out is because someone else he knew that this has happened to, not through Raybeez, but through someone else, recently died, I think, of drugs or committed suicide or whatever it was, who passed away because of it. So he's seen why this isn't, like we said, you're not directly killing somebody, it's ruining people's lives, and eventually they do die because of this, and they've had to have torturous, horrible lives because they've had to, deal with the emotional, aftermath of all this. So to him, it's, yeah, you know what? Fuck it. I can't sit here and be silent anymore. This is someone who's been put on a pedestal in the scene. He's had to watch this over and over and over and be quiet. And he's just like, you know what? I don't want, this guy's got this legacy, this wonderful guy. I'm not going to sit here and allow this to happen. I'll be the bad guy, quote unquote bad guy, because everyone's going to come at me now for saying this. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to tell it like it is, from what I know, from what people have told me. So I get it, right? Someone's dead for 30 years almost. Like I said, I think it's one of those classic cases where you don't know what you would do until it's really happening. You're in those shoes. So if that happened to me or you, if we were in his shoes where this act had been done to yourself, and you see people like he's been able to overcome it, good for him, and stay positive and have a healthy life and a good life for himself. And he's accomplished a lot, but it's hard to say what you would do if you were in those shoes. Now, a lot of people are doing the whole, well, he's doing this to stay relevant. Okay. Because he needs to, he's got a book coming out, or he has all the, he's an entrepreneur. He, makes money by selling books, by I think life coaching and training people on their health and all that stuff. Right. So they're like, well, he needs to keep himself, relevant, because but if people don't know, this is the other thing now. This is the other thing is that John is, he's been very vocal on his socio-political stances. In particular, the COVID vaccine mandate, which he railed against a lot of hardcore people for, kind of kowtowing to that, where this was a scene now when they were coming up, the Cro-Mags and all those bands, all these bands, they were against the government. They were against government overreach, which, depending on your obviously your take on it, your opinion, that the COVID vaccine mandate was, and he felt it was, and he came out. He's very vocal. He was also vocal against the people in the scene that didn't speak up. He didn't point out in particular, but he was saying nobody's saying anything, and this is what we all stood for. And he kind of went off on him about it. So this guy, obviously, between his stance politically against people, fans, and people on social media who don't agree with him, he's been vilified and essentially canceled within the scene. So people saying, well, and he's saying it, look, I got nothing to lose here. I don't need to be relevant in the scene that discarded me some years ago. Now, the flip side, people are saying, well, that's why you're doing it, right? You've got nothing to lose. You could take down the scene with you because of, with the guy who's supposed to be, the big good guy of the scene all these years. Now we're finding out he's not, that he was a fraud, so let's unpack that right now. All right. That aspect coming from that angle. What do you think? I mean, again, that argument could come from both sides, people I can understand thinking, well, yeah, you have nothing to do with the scene anymore. So you got nothing to lose by coming out and saying this. Now, would someone go to these lengths? Now, if you go to the lengths to lie about something like that Todd Youth told you this, to make that up out of thin cloth and just throw it out there like it's, look, we've known that Johnson, we had Paris May once. I did an interview with him a handful of years ago, me and Bob Nalbandian on Skull Sessions. 3 hours he talked. Most of that, a lot of that was about John. And we heard some things about John on there that, sure, you'd make you go, oh, man. Ooh. Now, granted, a lot of those things he's talking about happened a long time ago. It happened when he was younger. Involved more money, more theft type of stuff, you know what I mean? Or just shady stuff like that. but it wasn't this, right? It wasn't to this length. But but there could be, some people say he's got a credibility issue, is what they're saying, basically. And they can't believe that someone like, him would do that. So anyway, I can see both sides. What do you say?
Well, yeah, I can as well. But again, what does he have to
Gain, really?
gain from this, as opposed to, because if he's already out of the scene, like, this is a horrific accusation. I'm just going to flat out say it, right? So what is he trying to, I bet you he's speaking out for, something that's been eating within himself for many years and needs to get it out, kind of thing. If this is indeed true, because I don't know if they actually did have a conversation. Regardless of that fact, this is just a horrific accusation.
It is. Yeah.
So,
well, let's put it this way. So I'll read word for word. He says when he sent me, he responded to me when I reached out. Quote unquote, he said, there was a series of events recently that led me to finally speak up about it. And of course, like with the COVID and the hardcore scene is attacking me, he's like, I've done nothing. I have nothing to do with it anymore. Meaning the New York hardcore scene. They proved who they were during the pandemic, and like you said, there's the other, let's just go through some more arguments here. Okay. The other argument is the fact that Todd played at a tribute show to Raybeez back in 2017. Okay. Some say he even helped organize the function. Okay. So someone's saying, well, if this is true what he's saying, then why would he even do that? Right? Well, I mean, if you think about it, okay, if someone's like, we're going to do a tribute here to Ray, right? Of course, the first guy they're going to think of now is Todd, because he was the guitarist in Warzone, right? So you got to be there. Todd's got to be there. So if you're Todd, and if you're saying, you're thinking, I'm just, again, this is all speculation, everybody. This is not, we're saying this happened. But if this really did happen to Todd, and people are going, we're doing this tribute to him, obviously, you got to be a part of it. We want you to be part of it. Now, I mean, if he wasn't ready to come out and tell people this yet, and he decided it was better to go along to get along for now, and I'm not ready, well, he's going to do that, right? You're going to play it. You're not going to, if you just say, no, I don't want to do it. Well, why? Why don't you? People are going to be mad at you. Yeah, you're talking about a whole scene here. You're talking about a guy who was, like I said, up there, in the ranks of the greatest of all time of people in the scene. So if if you're going to come out and say this about him, it's not like you're just going to come out one day and do. I mean, it's going to. I mean, this is such a horrific accusation. It's not something that you can just come out and say. You have to wait for that right time till you're ready to do it, till you have the courage to do it, because you're going to get a lot of backlash on it. Because the guy's dead, he can't defend himself. So think about that too. That wasn't easy for Todd to try to come out and say that this dead guy that everyone loves was a monster. So, the pressure's on you to kind of go do it, but at the same time, I can understand that from the fans' perspective, and for people who don't believe the story will be like, look, so I'm going to bring up something here. We'll bring up now, it took a few days for anyone to even come out and say anything in defense of against what John was saying, other than just fans. I'm talking about, big name guys in the scene. Okay. Because John, listen, he's a legendary figure in that scene. He was, on the first Cro-Mags, he was on a couple of their albums, but he's on the biggest one known there. He's been on a bunch of bands, in the scene for a long time, been very involved. So I'm going to bring up, give me 1 second. I'm going to bring up here now. This is from, just came out today from Jimmy Gestapo, who's obviously the lead singer of one of the OG bands from the scene, Murphy's Law. All right. Let's bring up Jimmy's thing here, because Jimmy, I'm just going to bring up his, I got a lot of these things I'm bringing up. I got to disseminate which one's here, but let me bring up Jimmy's now. Now, this was shared on Reddit. All right. I don't know if anyone can see it here. Let me scroll to it. Give me 1 second here. I know I gotta go through a bunch of crap here. But let's bring up the main post. Okay, there it is right there. All right. So I'm not going to read a word for it, but basically he's saying that making accusations against the dead when they can't defend themselves is straight up wrong. Okay, so I think that's where that's the main thing here, right? It's like, how can you say this stuff when someone's dead, not defend himself? Yet the flip side is, well, how can I not say something about this person when I know and I have enough, stories or people telling me things that this guy's a monster and he's on this pedestal, and this guy shouldn't be if he did all this stuff to people, right? He makes some good points. I mean, Jimmy says it there. Like, there's a lot of trial by Facebook and Instagram going on. Unfortunately, look, you got these just random fans. People are going to talk shit. That's just the way it is. That's the horrible thing about social media, right? It's really, it should be called emotional media, not social, because it's not social bad, it's all negative, right? Now, he did bring up a good point here too about Todd's kids. I mean, they're healing. They've had to deal with this as well. Their dad, overdosing, and not being around anymore. It's hard for them. This is going to open up wounds like, wow, did this really happen to my dad? And is this why, John basically says this is one of the reasons why he didn't make it, Todd. He struggled with addiction. Was it because of what Raybeez did to him? So, I mean, this, again, another heavy thing, but he said he's disappointed, disgusted. He doesn't agree with slandering the dead. And obviously he says being obviously very close with Todd. I mean, like I said, Todd was in Murphy's Law forever. They were the best of friends, him and Jimmy, supposedly. I mean, him and Todd and Jimmy were. So he said he never heard him say anything about this. Okay. So now you could look at it and say, well, maybe why would he share it with John and not and not Jimmy? Well, John, because maybe he knows that John had gone through this himself. He could relate to it. John's been open about it in his books, right? When you go through something like this yourself, I mean, you're not just going to tell anybody, and him and John, were both, big followers of the Hare Krishna faith. So they also had that in common. They had a lot of these discussions, I guess. Maybe he felt like John was the guy he could talk to about it. He supposedly did tell some other people, from what John said, but, we don't know who that is. But there, so we at least got one. And this is why, look, if the media is going to come out, props to lambgoat.com, as we've said, for being the only ones to post this. You got a lot of people that are like, oh, why even post this thing? John's a freaking clown, blah, blah, blah. You could have that opinion. Like you said, a lot of it comes because of his stance on the vaccine thing. They don't like his takes on things, his politics, whatever.
So wait, but
Sure.
But in this case, I want to get to something though. So the message now becomes blurry because of the messenger. So that my point in all this is, even though, you might not agree with this particular individual on this particular stance, but because of that, now it negates this particular like the message that the individual is trying to get out, which doesn't make any sense to me, because the message should be the message.
Well, it should, but listen, we got to understand that there are, I'm not saying it's John. I'm saying there are some messengers out there that, they're not a great messenger, so their message doesn't hold much weight due to credibility. My thing is, that's why I was trying to go over. I don't think listen, John, has he lied about things in the past? Maybe, I don't know. Like I said, the stuff we heard from Paris Mayu, a lot of shit in there, which would give you pause to think maybe if what he's saying is true as well. Remember, it's a he said, she said thing, this whole thing. But to me, what I think is this. Okay, forget about social media people and fans and blah, blah, blah. I think the only thing that matters here, we obviously don't matter either. What matters here is, okay, John, because he said it, the old heads in the scene, like Jimmy, Gestapo, okay, as well as anyone else that comes out and accuses, makes accusations against Raybeez that, yes, he did do this. Those are, to me, that's the only thing that matters. Me, you, everyone else's social media doesn't mean shit. We're just speculating and hearing news and going through it. So it doesn't matter what people are saying, right? My thing is, so if we stick to that now, we just went over Jimmy, right? He's the first and only guy as of yet that has come out, that's an old head, hardcore guy. It's come out in support of Raybeez and saying that John, like, he thinks it's wrong and he doesn't believe it, right? Okay. Mm-hmm. Now let's go into the next thing, all right? Because the fact is, okay, now John Joseph has been the only one to come out with these accusations towards Raybeez, right? He says he's done this to a lot of people, and a lot of people have told him. Okay. He said, even, and he sent us in the email he sent me, he also said, since he's put this out, he's had multiple people on Instagram reply to him and said, hey, yeah, Raybeez did this to me as well.
Interesting.
So that's where it gets you. So now let me bring up one of those. There was a post made on his Instagram. You know, if you go through it and listen, it's up there right now. People can read it. All right. I'm going to bring it up. Now, this is someone, once again, this is just somebody on an Instagram post. Okay.
Mhm.
Is this real or
Well,
not?
so was the other one. So it's the
Sure.
John posted it on Instagram too. So it's
Yeah. Now the
still-
question revolves around, all right, well, is it credible or not? You know? So that's why I'm going to bring this up. All right. Now, here's somebody, okay, this person can't really see, VXDEVI on Instagram says, thank you for calling him out. This creep in capital letters was hovering around me when I was underage, and he was in his, I'm trying to enlarge this a little bit in case people
in his
wanna
early
see it.
30s.
Yeah. In his early 30s, I wish I still had the predatory love, quote unquote, love letters he mailed me. Fuck that guy. And then John said, you're not the only one, trust me, but thank you for mentioning it. So,
Interesting.
all right. So we have now this is just a random person saying he did it to me, a female. Okay. And said he was in his 30s. All right. So now whether that's credible or not, we don't know, but it is somebody calling it saying did this to me as well. Right. Okay. Now here's the other thing now. Okay. Well, that's just a random person. Now, what about all the old heads? Okay. What about hardcore heads out there that have been, the old guard, the, old classic bands that are still even going today? What about them? Where are they? We've heard from Jimmy now, Jimmy Gestapo. Okay. Now, but he says, I don't believe this. I haven't heard shit. Okay. Now, what about anyone? Is anyone that's going to, say what John, like, yeah, I've heard some, I've heard rumors and whispers about this too. People told me stuff. Well, we do have people.
Wow.
First guy I'm going to bring up. Now, this is interesting too, because he has taken this down off of the post, John's post. All right. This comes from Armand from Sick of It All. All right. And I'm just this is just
of them all as far as I'm concerned, as far as all the New York hardcore bands, man, they're like top three.
Well, yeah, I mean, regardless if they're top three, the bottom line is this is a guy who was around back then in the band.
Right.
All right. Who's saying, here it is. Okay. Now he's since deleted this. I took this yesterday, when we were going to do this, we were setting up. I was going through, I figured I'd take some screenshots. He's gone and deleted this. Interesting, right? So he just says right here, Armand of It All is from, I've been wondering for decades if this story would ever be told publicly. Heard about it in the 80s, but not directly from Todd. Rest in peace. Some people's secret truths are so ugly, and you can hear whispers about them in the scene, but can never know for certain unless you experience them yourself. The fact that Ray was beloved by so many worldwide, like an icon, made these whispers very, very taboo. Bingo, right? And then John goes on to reply and says he received a message from someone who was in the scene, that he just got one, that told them that Ray tried to molest her underage girlfriends. And he makes a quote here too, and we'll get that later. I won't get to that now. But here, listen, here's a guy now. Okay, we can't. Armand from Sick of It All was around there. He's saying, I was wondering for decades if this story would ever be told publicly. He heard about it in the 80s, but not directly from Todd. So these whispers, this isn't just John making this up out of thin cloth. You got another guy here now in a major, major band that was around then saying he heard the same thing. Okay. Now I don't think I bring up this, but there's another guy. Okay. Like I said, and that's still there. I brought this one up mostly because it's not there anymore. Okay. He took it down, Armand. Someone asked him, where's Armand's post? He said, I don't know. I didn't take it down. It wasn't me. All right. So I'm going to stop that there. Now there's another guy, all right, that played with Todd. Okay. His name is Michael Wildwood. He was the drummer from that band I was telling you that I love called Chrome Locust. They had an album now. It was great. Like a stoner, doomy, like a stoner psychedelic kind of band. Stoner psychedelic punk. Great record. He was a drummer. He played for Monster Magnet as well. Now he didn't say if he did or not. He just said something to effect of, yep. He basically just almost acknowledged it and just said, rest in peace, Todd. Like, yep, sucks or something like that. Didn't say, yeah, I heard that or I didn't hear it. Okay. Now I'm going to bring up another one. Now this isn't someone confirming it either. You wonder though. I mean, Armand kind of did. He at least confirmed he heard the whispers. Obviously, he said he never heard it from Todd, or he doesn't have any. He didn't see it or anything. But I'm going to share this one now. Again, this isn't saying, we're not accusing this person, or we're not saying he knew about it.
No, we just find this interesting.
Yeah, we just find this interesting. It's a post, and I'm just going to share the post. Is all we're going to do. Let me see. I just got to make sure I'm getting the right ones here, because I got a bunch of these.
Because again, what is the media's responsibility in telling this, these stories? Because it seems like their mission was to cancel people, and then I'm not hearing anything about this except for on the Lamb Goat site.
Exactly. Yes.
So, is it the message or is it the messenger?
Yeah. Well, here's Biohazard from Evan Seinfeld. Now if you're reading, I'm just going to give it a little bit of it. It just said this is heartbreaking, and he goes on to talk about it. He does a thing called mentorship. It's his business he has, and he says he holds spaces for a lot of men who carry trauma from abuse around sexual, physical, mental, and so forth. And what he's using this is sort of a way of like people to come out, because it is heartbreaking. Because if this did that happen to Todd, like John's saying, it sucked that this guy had to carry this around. And he wound up dying from addiction, and not just Todd, but obviously John's brother, and John had a couple other people he knew and some friends that this has happened to. So you see, John's obviously, you can see he's deep. He's knows a lot of people, and this is why I guess he decided to come out. But Evan's saying that obviously he just goes on and talks about how men struggle with trauma and so forth. But he does say, thanks for the support, and basically, props to him for bringing this out. Which thinks to me, it's like, well, you can look at this two ways. Is he saying it because, is he using this as an opportunity to promote his business? Or is this his way of sort of saying, yeah, I kind of heard the same thing. I heard some whispers too. And I'm not saying he did. I'm not saying that. So you can read the text. Again, you can read the post yourself. You can go to John's page and read this post and reads everyone's reactions to it. We're not saying, like I said, I'm just putting it up there because it is a prominent person in the scene.
One of the biggest.
At least he commented, didn't say agree with it, but just said it's heartbreaking. And if it's true, he has a business there that helps people with this,
which is important as well, right?
Oh, that's absolutely. It's usually, I agree. It's completely important. So now this story gets interesting a little bit more because you've got some prominent people in the scene. One guy came out and said he saw it. He saw whispers. Not saw it. Excuse me. Take that back. He heard whispers and rumors about it. He did not. No one's seen anything. Nobody. That's the thing about this. No one has seen it. But some people supposedly who have been involved in it, who had it happen to them. That as we brought up one person's, whether she's a credible person or not, we don't know. We're just saying this is what's out there.
The fact that people are like posting this stuff is I mean, it's blowing my mind right now.
Yeah,
it'd be different if John said this and like there was nothing else said about it. But the fact that you're getting both sides, it's just interesting. I just find it interesting.
Yeah, yeah. And now the other thing people say, and we won't talk much more about this. We've gotten most of it here. They say, well, dude, if Raybeez was a straight edge, if he was straight edge, how could he be giving these people drugs if he was straight edge? Well, according to Joseph and I guess people he knows and stuff, he was never clean. That he was drinking, doing all sorts of hard drugs the whole time. So essentially, basically, it's not even just this guy did this. Essentially, this accusation is everything this guy stood for was a complete farce. He was a fraud. He's a total fraud. So the question is, so we've got, like I said, we've got this, got a guy like John Joseph, coming out, a guy who's hardcore figure, been there since the early days, on one of the all-time classic records, top 3 record, probably New York hardcore history, arguably, but I don't think many people argue that. You've got people. I mean, I read some, I read Jimmy Gestapo's post and his comments on there from Paris Mayu and saying, I told you guys so. And so obviously, there's a lot of people right now, he doesn't have things going for him, I think. But I think what needs to happen, if this is going to be true or not, meaning if people are going to believe this, I should say, and not just be true, we'll never know, obviously, because those people are no longer here. But we could hear from someone like we did the post I brought up of other people coming out saying, yeah, and agreeing with John, or just saying, hey, yeah, he did this to me. Now the thing is this is the question now. I mean, where are these people going to go? Are you going to go to John's page? Is it going to be seen? I mean, you're talking about people that obviously this hasn't happened to anyone else in the hardcore scene, I don't believe. Maybe it has. If it is, maybe we'll see something come out. Todd's the only one that is being brought into the story about something happening to him. It just really, again, it's a sad thing. But my thing is like, okay, it's going to take some brave men and women, okay, to come out and speak up about it. I mean, I don't think you could say, listen, you could dislike John for bringing this up, but it's hard. I mean, like I said, I don't know. Did he make this up? I would certainly hope not, man. I mean, if you would just make this up out of thin cloth, just to then you're the biggest piece of shit in the world. Seriously.
Because then you're actually hurting the other people from speaking.
Oh my God!
Kind of behavior.
Well, look what you're hurting. Yeah. You're hurting not only you take it down, Raybeez's reputation forever,
and your own. If again, we're not even saying it happened or didn't happen. We're just speculating by the information that we're unraveling here right now as we're talking, right? Because all this is public, right? This is not like it's. Yeah, it's not no, this isn't emails or things like that. This is like public on social media.
That's why I brought up the post and everything, just to show people that this is out. This isn't just something we're talking about. I mean, bringing that out.
And the fact that the media isn't covering this as they should, that would help the cause of this particular bad behavior from being nipped in the butt. Going forward, if the media was actually cared about the message. And it seems like it's frustrating to even say it, but it seems like it's not really the case. And so the innocent victims of this kind of behavior too, it's like you're right. Like, where if this indeed happened, how would they get their message out if it's not being covered?
Well, that's the thing, right? Because that's my point. I mean, listen, Lamb Goat's the only one covering it. Like I said, props to them for doing real journalism here. And they got shit for it from a lot of people. But that's journalism. You might not like it. But again, they're not taking the side. They're putting out what was posted. It's a big story. This is a huge accusation, from a person who's a bigger figure. We're not talking about some... Look, if this was somebody from a smaller band... Okay, from a smaller band from the 90s saying, hey, Raybeez, he did this to me. It's not going to get coverage. It won't get any credibility. People will shut you up. The fact that's coming from John Joseph, that's a big... Now, this is what makes this a really big story. And listen, I mean, again, we're not taking a side. We're not saying that this did indeed happen or not. Okay, but you've got to go through the different things here. If people want to automatically discredit the messenger because they don't like his previous messages and maybe he's got some sort of credibility issue that other people have accused him of over the years. Well, I said, fair enough. But, you're talking about a real big thing here. I mean, and you're talking about someone who's going to look, as we know, I mean, and this is the problem, right? I mean, and he brings it up in his post and we've seen this now, right? We've seen this with the P. Diddy and the Epsteins, and not just them, we've seen this all the time. But when you watch a lot of these shows of these big figures that were freaking, propped up, as we saw this with priests, right? In the Catholic Church, how many freaking accusations were that? So this isn't anything new. But anyway, I mean, we could go on about this. We'll stop it for here. All right, we'll stop it. But there is that quote. There is that quote. The only thing necessary for triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing. That could be what is going on here. Could be. We'll definitely get into. I think this is something we're going to continue to follow, and we'll keep up on this, obviously. But remember that this is, if something's going to happen, these things happen, right? People got to speak up. John felt like he felt like, I need to speak up because no one else is gonna. And I'm hearing so many stories of it, including from my good friend who can't speak from the grave now, Todd. I get it from the flip side as well. These guys aren't here to defend themselves or talk it. If Todd wanted it out there, why didn't he put it out there early enough? People believe if no one's here to defend themselves, you should never say it. But then, like you said, John's arguments, well, then I'm going to let some guy who I know, or people have told me, a lot of people, that is a bad guy, be this iconic figure forever. I'm not going to let that happen. I'm going to be if you hate me, sure, kill me, kill the messenger, fine. But there is that message. And so it's like I said, we'll keep everyone up to date as we hear more, maybe from either more accusers of Raybeez, Raybeez, or some backers of him who say they think that's bullshit. Again, we're reporting the story. We're not taking a side. I just want to throw that out there. But,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm
but
just interested in this whole thing because this is blowing my mind, So yeah, I hope there's a follow-up to this because it would be really interesting to see.
Well, yeah, we'll keep everyone posted. If no one else is going to talk about this, and at least, just like I said, give the sides, and bottom line is we'll keep up on this. We'll continue to let everyone know what's going on with it if you don't want to go ahead and do the digging yourself, because I think it's going to be a lot of digging because the press just isn't really talking about this much. So anyway, all right, Aftershocks TV, we're good to go. We'll see everyone next time. Tanner, thanks for joining me, bud, and take care of everyone. See you next time.
I had an interest in music, always.
It's always kind of been around me some way, shape, or form.
5 minutes sitting on a drum set, man, change your life.
This is the same black guitar that Marty McFly plays in Back to the Future.
I love the feeling I get in front of the freaking full stack here, just the vibration, there's something to it.
I'm lucky because I do have a little bit of a tap into the Fu Manchu lore, into the Nebula lore.
In order to keep things going, you kind of have to like start playing the game a little bit, like the business game.
Everybody has to get through a day-to-day, and how do you exist and how do you get by?
As far as getting people to commit to bands, it's tough to keep a lot together these days, for sure.
Still sleeping on people's floor, that's still a reality.
Probably also playing with some of the best people I've ever played with. The creative juices don't stop. It just keeps going.
For me, it's just finding a balance of how much time I'm spending with my family versus how much time I'm spending working.
It's this validation that what you're doing actually has merit.
Obviously, we're a little long in the tooth, and we've been doing this for a minute, and now we can kind of do what we want. We don't need a record company. I'll do it myself. I'll do it the way I want to.
Just always be cool. Just be respectful. Those are your people. They're connecting to you on some level, even if they don't look like you.
It's got to happen, or else I'll go crazy. Go crazy one way or another, I might as well, not go crazy if I can play music.
Maybe one day I'll have a Porsche, but until that day, I'll drive a Chevy.
There you go.
All right.